care of my mother for 7 years before she passed away. I had the privilege of being with her, and I gotta say, after 30 years of nursing, my mother was the best patient I've ever had. She never really gave me any trouble, although she didn't know who I was. I was with her every day and every night, but she didn't know me, didn't know who I was. But she would sit and talk to me about Connie. And I'd say, Mom, I'm Connie. And she'd just start crying and say, no. I'll say, well, where is she? She said, I don't know, something happened to her, and I don't know where she is. But I had a good mother. I've got a good brother out there, too, and I'm thankful for that. I had a lot of rough times. But the Lord saw us through, and we had a good mother. I never heard her say anything bad about anybody. Nobody. No matter what. And if I could pick a second mother, I'd pick Eva. She put up with me a lot. Spent a lot of time in her home, me and Lamont. Probably drove her nuts, but she still loved us anyway, so I have to give honor to Edith this morning, and I'm glad she's still in my life. After my mother passed away, and we were gonna sell Mom and Dad's property, I guess. And we got to going through stuff and found out that Mama never threw away anything. And where she kept all the stuff stored, I have no clue. But we went through box after box, and I came upon this box and had a bunch of love letters in there that Mom and Dad had wrote back and forth. My dad was illiterate. He would have someone else to write to Mother, and I found this little envelope. And it was love letters between my mother and Dad that she had saved 65 years. And I found them. And they were so precious to me. And one of them, she was writing to Dad, and she put the pencil in my hand and helped me scribble a little bit and sent that to my dad. That's my first handwriting. I was 3 months old. But I found this tribute that I hate to take up all this time, but this is important. We had moved to Illinois, and we lived out there for over 50 years. My grandmother had got sick, and they'd called all the family in to come down to Louisville, and grandmother passed away. And when Mom got back home, she sat down and wrote this tribute to her mother. And I'm not aware that anybody ever saw it before, and I found it in that box of treasures that she had. I'd like to read that to you. Another thing I'd like to say before I start in. Do y'all remember when we all that had a living mother wore a red rose to church? Well, my grandma had a rose garden. She grew red roses and white roses. She did that for her and my dad because they had lost their mothers. I always thought that was sad that Grandma and Daddy would wear a white rose and all the rest of us got to wear a red rose. Those were days that's gone by. We don't do that anymore. But if I'd have come in here with a red rose on or a white rose today, you would have known. She would have had to wear the red one, I would have. So here goes. To my mother, Mrs. Mary E. Hafley, who departed from this life and went home to be with the Lord on October 26, 1965. The child of God had worked hard on this earth throughout life's long day. Sometimes there were briars and thorns in her pathway, which she carefully removed, lest others should be beset by them. Also, it was sometimes dark down in the valley, but she never complained of the darkness, but lighted a lamp so that others might see the way too. She often sang, and almost always she smiled as she went about her work. But as the evening shadows began to lengthen, she seemed to grow somewhat weary, and her steps seemed a little slower. And the Heavenly Father, who sees all things, even the fall of the tiniest sparrow, took notice and decided she should come home to rest. So he called his summoning angel and said, "The child has done enough. She must come home to us tonight. Send for her at once." The angel hastened to do as he was bidden. She would need wings for the flight, and they must be just right. Angel wings would not do, because though feathery light and soft as they were, they might rustle in flight, and be too noisy for such a quiet soul as hers. So he looked around, and behold, a large pair of butterfly wings of the purest golden silk. They would be just right. On the golden silken wings of upward and onward, she soared above the heavens and the stars, the great white Milky Way and outer space, right up to the heavenly gates, where the Father himself awaited her and spoke to her the dearest words the soul can ever hear. "Well done, my child. Welcome home." That meant a lot to me,